Welcome back to Myth Mental Health. I am Justin Alexander Williams, or Justin A. Williams, author of Reborn Virtues Constellation, which you can get on Amazon and Barnes and Nobles and other places where books are found. And today, what we're going to talk about is temptation in myth. Right. So, if you know, obviously, the stories from the Christian angle or many of the monotheistic Abrahamic religions, temptation is a very big theme. But outside of those, temptation in the earlier religions, the polytheistic religions, is also a major theme as well. Now, what is temptation, right? Temptation, in my opinion, is not just when you have a desire that is illicit, right? It's when it's a desire is illicit to the community and illicit in terms of teaching others in the future through the myth that inside you are damaging yourself as much as you are damaging your external life, right? So if you look at stories of temptation in terms of the story of Agamemnon, when he comes home and his wife, his Clytemnestra, has cheated on him, and she is tempted to not only cheat but kill him because of what he did to their daughter Iphigenia, sacrificing her to get a good wind in the story of the Iliad, sacrificing her to Artemis. Right. We also look at the temptation of Aphrodite and Ares. You can see the temptation in other stories from around the globe in different myths, and temptation acts as a kind of barrier between what is not only right and wrong, but also what is ethical. What is ethics? Ethics is the discussion of what is the best, what is good for us, also what is healthy for us, I think, if we want to expand it in a holistic way. So myths teach us that temptation always is punished, even if it's not punished immediately, right? Temptation is always going to be something that is going to come about and create something wrong, right? If you look at the Norse tradition, you could say that the temptation to keep Loki around, or the temptation to do something that Loki, who is the agent of chaos, but also the agent of judgment in Norse mythology, to exact a spell on Balder without asking Balder. His mother exacts a spell where she makes all things promise not to harm him. What does that do? How does that eventually play out into Ragnarok and leading to the death of Balder? It's this notion that the thing you do to stop evil is the thing that creates the evil, right? Just like in the other way, that from the evil perspective, when the villain tries to stop good, it creates more good sometimes. So I think from learning from different stories in mythology, we can gather that temptation is going to feel good in the moment. Anything in your life, and this is how this can improve your mood and your habits, anything in your life that gets you off center, off track, right, pulls you away from those who genuinely love you and have good intentions for you, even if that's hard to discern, is going to be tempting. It's no wonder that sometimes when we are in a relationship with someone, we then confront temptation, right? When you're single, you're not confronting any temptation. In fact, you maybe feel very isolated and alone. Many people in this country and America feel isolated and alone and would love a little bit of temptation in their lives. But the reason why temptation comes to us when we are in the sometimes the best state in our life and in the worst possible position to agree to follow temptation is very similar to the story of Buddha. Buddha is sitting under a tree and he's trying to meditate. And then just as he's about to hit nirvana, the state of bliss, is leaving the mortal realm, that's when the god of chaos, Mara, comes with his daughters to tempt him in all manner of ways. And they offer him everything he's ever wanted, right? He had his path of meaning. He was once a prince. He left to become a pauper, and now he can return to being a prince, and he can do so and teach. He can have all the women anyone would ever want, all the riches. He can still be himself, right? Temptation is going to be intelligent. People don't understand that temptation is going to adjust to you, right? Just as the spider adjusts its web based upon where it is and what kind of food it wants, what kind of flies or bees is coming around. Temptation is going to be an artificial intelligence, if you can think of it that way. Temptation is not going to be simply as stiff and as stoic as a rock. It's not going to be easy to handle or defeat. Otherwise, it wouldn't be called temptation. And otherwise, it wouldn't be something that would actually cause you to risk all that you have. Now, some people might be saying, if you're an atheist, well, why would the universe do this to us? Why would any God or righteous life have that? And I think the answer is because perhaps we are dealing with a universe that has conflicting beings of power. If you believe in the higher beings and spiritual beings, God or whatever, the first peoples on the earth were not monotheistic. They believed in conflicts in the heavens. And if you look at our own life, there are conflicts of intention within people that we know, right? The energies, the vibe that you feel when you're around a crowd of people that maybe you've been friends with for a long time, but are not serving you in the best way, that is a form of temptation, right? The temptation to have great friends, but maybe you find them boring. Maybe you are toxic. You're trying to social climb. You're trying to do things that are shallow. You want to be going out at night with a bunch of people who work in finance, or you want to marry someone who's richer than the person that you're with. This form of intention comes from the internal lack that you feel. So temptation works on people that are lacking and have abundance. Just like it says in the parable, I think in the Bible, it rains on the good and the evil alike, right? The just and the unjust alike. So how can we combat temptation? Well, if you look at the stories, you're not supposed to fight temptation. You want to be more like Buddha, and you don't want to be like Aries. Aries is a consummate warrior. He is initially written by Hesiod and Homer. He is a god that is courageous and a positive being. He is a defender of civilization and cities. But then we get around the Athenian age, and they don't value him the same way. Many city-states valued him as bloodthirsty and lustful, right? And around that time, possibly the myth of him and Aphrodite came around. Aphrodite is tempting him into an affair, and I say temptation not because she is necessarily the only one who's wrong in the situation, but because she is the one who's married and he is not. She is married to Hephaestus, his Aries' brother, half brother, or full brother. I think full brother. So they are both in the wrong, and they both follow the path of temptation. And he is the warrior. She is the queen and goddess of love. And so there's a beautiful butterfly above me. I've never even really seen one in my garden, but maybe that's a sign that I'm doing the right thing here. But she is undeniable. How can you deny Aphrodite? And especially if you're going to combat that with the warrior mentality, which is to strike and to be singularly focused on victory, that might not serve you well. You might need to be subtle. You might need to be more like Buddha, where he's patient and meditative. He's considering constantly in a state of, okay, I'm going to let the temptation play out, but I'm going to constantly be aware of myself and my inner health and where my goal was initially, not as the warrior, but as the sage, as a peaceful being, as the pauper. Consider your experiences. Consider how long it took, how hard you worked to get to where you are before you consider falling into temptation and regressing all the way back down to the bottom. Right? In Hinduism, it's very interesting. The gods even themselves fall into temptation because they fall into temptation of laziness and not following dharma. They don't do good acts anymore, right? Because they've hit a pinnacle, and then they fall all the way back. In Hinduism, you could cycle through different stages. And Buddha, who's an anathema to Hinduism, comes along and says, no, we want to escape this cycle. This cycle itself must have tempted us at some point in some time in our cosmic lives. And the earth itself, life itself, is a temptation, right? It is, some people call it a matrix, right? That it's a simulation. Regardless of what it is, everything in life, to stay where you are is a temptation, because you want to escape from it powerfully, but also peacefully. Now, I used to be Buddhist. I was basically raised from my teenagehood going to a Buddhist temple for a long time. And I left the religion because I felt that I wanted to be more in the bodhisattva level of things. I didn't want to leave the world. I want to help people. I want to be there for people, the family that I love, and you, the viewer. So I think that's the model that can help you with temptation, is always acting with the intention of doing good for yourself and good for others. I know it's hard, but if you're in a situation where you're in a relationship or you're not in a relationship and you know someone that is flirting with you, you have perfect chemistry. It's like, wow, this person's perfect for me, but they have a significant other. I know it's not really the modern way of looking at things in terms of how a lot of young people want to see things now, but consider that person. Don't consider the person that's tempting you necessarily. Consider the person that's going to get hurt in that situation. Even if you think they're not a good person and they don't deserve the person that you desire, the temptation is going, that energy, that vibe is going to stick with you, even if they break up with that person. Because to be tempted once to create a toxic situation, that temptation feeling is what they love. It's not you. They don't want you. They want the feeling of being tempted. And so even if you get with that person, give it a couple of months, they'll be tempted to be somewhere else, and you will be the other guy. You'll be the cuckold, so to speak. You'll be the person that's going to be the victim in that situation. And even outside of romantic relationships, there's so many things in life that can tempt us into folly, tempt us into falling into where we don't want to be. If you look at the story of the Book of Enoch, which used to be canonical in Judaism, it's no longer considered that way. And what that means is that it's no longer considered mainstream Judaism or even Orthodox. But it's a fascinating account of the mixture of Hellenism, Greek religion and thought, and Judaic thought, kind of like Philo was dealing with in Egypt. And it's a story of the angels seeing human women and either, depending on your translation, lusting or loving them, and coming down and creating the Nephilim. Nephilim are these beings that are called, they shake the earth, like Goliath, story of David. Great, powerful beings. I think this is the Judaic kind of explanation for beings like Samson or Hercules. And this relationships create these beings that are too strong for the world. They're too chaotic. You've created a being that doesn't fit, a toxicity. That is temptation in itself, rearing its head. And what that will do is it will destroy. And so there's nothing really positive about using that force, right? If you like Star Wars is American mythology, right? We can talk about that here on this vlogcast. The dark side users have to be very careful, the Sith, because they fall into these extremes of using anger and rage and temptation, all the things that are so easy to fall into, when the Jedi use things that are hard to fall into: stoicism, peacefulness, restraint. However, the Jedi are flawed too. Why? Because they don't notice when temptation rears its ugly head and is actually corrupting them. If you look at the story of Anakin Skywalker, everybody thinks that he fell to the dark side, but what about Yoda? Why should Yoda be able to be privy to the thoughts of Anakin? Why should Yoda have the power and the right on the council to tell anybody who they should be and who cannot be a Jedi, who is not? Jedi should not have kings. But see, Yoda becomes a king in himself. Mace Windu becomes kings because they are deciders. And that temptation does not always have to be something that feels so good. It could feel wrong in a sense, or not have a feeling at all. And that's the worst kind of temptation. The temptation that is mute. You don't even notice that it is tempting you into a path of self-destruction. And I say self-destruction because destruction of the self is always the destruction we should be looking out for more than any other. Even though we care about society, we care about other things, we care about the destruction of our household and things of that nature, like in Game of Thrones or something like that, where at the end of Game of Thrones or the beginning of the show, the great houses are in their worst position, right? We care about society, but we can't have a society if we don't have individuals. And we can't have individuals if we're not really making contracts with each other. And a part of that contract has to be that we have to follow the golden rule, that is to treat others as you'd like to be treated. And I think if you follow that, if you follow not only the myths, but great rules that come from myth and practice it in your head. Say it like a mantra, right? To combat temptation with understanding your history and how far you've come. Then I think we can really, really have a great discussion about how temptation can be subdued, if it can't be totally eradicated, right? Because it's going to come to you. It's going to find you, right? Just like people believe in a just world, your soulmate will find you. I was just talking to my mother and my sister this morning about twin flame soulmates, right? And my sister was adamant that she was going to find her soulmate. And I was saying to myself, this discussion is really interesting, because my mother is saying, well, you don't know, right? But I think there are good forces in life that want us to do well. Even if you're a scientist, you understand that vibration and vibe have an effect on physical matter, right? There was a scientist who did a study about how if you say positive things, carry on a positive energy to water, it takes on a different shape than if you say negative things. Plants operate like this too. If you speak well to a flower, it grows forward and is beautiful and bountiful. If you speak negatively to a flower, just like if you speak negatively to a dog, right, or a cat, look at so many animals that are abused. When you first confront them, they are not happy and they are not safe to be around. But then with positivity, they totally change. This is not the stuff of woo-woo or pseudoscience, right? I'm a big fan of Sam Harris, who's an atheist, because I think he relies on argumentation. And I think people of any background, religious or spiritual, should rely on logic and argumentation for anything they do. If you believe that there is a great force that's going to protect you from temptation, well, explain that logically to yourself. Don't rely just on something nebulous that you don't study. I really respect people who, whatever religion they are, they're learned in their religion. They've read the scriptures, because they are really going to be able to root themselves in a logic that can help prevent a lot of bad things. It could also root themselves in a logic that can make them quite erroneous in arguments and make them also very nearsighted and tunnel visioned. There's a yin yang to everything. There's the sweet and sour, as my Sifu, Shi Youngming, used to say, there's a sweet and sour to everything. But every time I went to train with Sifu, to tempt me, to remove me from the temptation of what he called sleeping style, which is staying in my bed, being lazy, growing fat-minded, lazily minded, obese in my gratuitous need to just waste a Saturday by not doing anything. He always said, happy birthday, Merry Christmas, every day. Every day you have to treat like it's a holiday. It has to be the best day of your life. And if it's not, we have to figure out how we can make it happen. And there are ways to make it happen. A little bit about myself. I have had situations in life where I've been totally on my own and resented by those that I trusted the most. And that's a very dark position. It's a position where you think no music, no myth can pull me out of. But then I remembered one day that Buddha, he, in his despair, when chaos and Mara came to him and offered him things that he honestly felt, maybe I can't deny, he said one powerful thing, and I've taken that as my mantra. This is my immovable spot. I will put my finger down on the earth and say, this is my church, this is my temple, this is my synagogue, wherever I am, this is the holy place where I can imbue and get in touch with the higher being or realm, or the highness in myself, my highest self, my most maximized potential, and I will not be moved. In the Christian sense, they say, no weapon formed against us shall prosper. I will not be moved. Roman soldiers used to say, I will not relent. Spartans, the story of the Brave 300, as we know. When you can go and say that this is my immovable spot, and that doesn't have to be a physical spot. It can be a position you take in an argument. It can be a position you take towards a friend or towards a family member. It could be a thought process. It can be a physical place in a house, or it can be a person, right? Root yourself in a hero that you have. someone that you admire. That's your movable spot. And then you will follow the characteristics proper to have right action, right thought, right speech, as they teach in Buddhism. And then temptation will go smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. So to finish up, this is my longest video because I think this has been the most fun to talk about. And this can go on for videos and videos and videos. So please, if you have any topics you want to share with me, write down in the comments myths you want me to go over. Like, share, and subscribe. And I hope that this video has helped you in some way understand that temptation is ever present. And temptation is smart like an artificial intelligence, but so are you. And so is, for those who believe, forces in the universe that want us to veer towards positivity. Otherwise, why are we here? Why would the universe create things that work in synergy, that work together? Why would the universe create things that are meditative and heal us and healthy for us, right? Why is it that when you look at the design of the human body, it's mirrored in the design of plants and things in nature? This is no accident, this is no mistake. And if you're sensing a little bit that I am between agnosticism and spiritualism, well, yeah, I'm still on a journey. And I think we all are too. So please like, share, and subscribe. Remember to pick up my book, Reborn Virtues Constellation. And yeah, we'll talk more. Thank you. This has been Myth Mental Health.